Good morning, this is Jen, the Liberty Lion, and today I want to go over a congressional record. It's June 13th, 1967, and we're going to go forward on our pages to about 105 on the PDF out of 198 pages. But I want to give you a little bit of background, and that background is that prior to Lincoln, and I've talked about this in several of my other videos, so some of you have been with me. This is just going to be beating a dead horse for you, but for some of my new subscribers, I've gone over lots of documentation to show that the Civil War was really just a way for Lincoln and whatever cronies he was working for acted outside of their oaths and took over the states. The Constitution is an amendment to the Articles of Confederation, and it says so in the Details Committee in their notes. And the Detail Committee is the committee of men who actually wrote the Constitution and approved its wording and writing and so on and so forth. So this Committee of Detail recognized that the Constitution was an amendment to the Articles of Confederation, and that the delegates appointed by the states that were free, sovereign, and independent, sent to the congressional meeting, or the meeting for the Constitution, the writing of the Constitution, were under orders as deputies to amend the Articles of Confederation. And what they did was they amended it and came up with a constitution. So the Constitution is an amendment to the Articles of Confederation. And in the Articles of Confederation, we see shown there that they have the United States of America in Congress assembled, as well as the United States in Congress assembled. So the United States of America in Congress assembled are when the free, sovereign, and independent states assemble. And when the United States in Congress assembled is when they assemble their the officers, the military officers are assembled for war purposes. And I go over lots of stuff in my videos to show you how this is so. Originally, after the Constitution was written, the states selected their military officers. They went to a district court and they applied through the court of record to become military officers. They had to first be approved for this from the legislators of the states, and then they had to get a commission signed by the president. After that, they would move on to the federal lands, also called the military posts, military reservations, the federal lands, islands in the states, called so during the Lincoln or during the Eisenhower administration and his jurisdiction reports. But after Lincoln came into power, that all changed, because whereas the states were previously free, sovereign, and independent, recognized by the Articles of Confederation, the federal government by force or by agreement, like the northern states agreed to come under the federal government and give up their sovereignty, and the southern states were overtaken forcefully, and the military officers under the president's command and under his orders were to go in and overtake the legislators of the states, which they did. And there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of documents that show that some members of Congress were arguing against this because Lincoln called them illegal rebel states. And being illegal rebel states, he had to take them over, and he called it a constitutional act, take them over and bring them back in under the Constitution, under the federal government. Whereas before they were over the federal government, they were free, sovereign, and independent. They created the federal government, and they were supposed to keep it in line, keep it where it needed to be, limited, constitutional. But when the federal government overtook the states, they called it a legal act, and they then acted as though it was constitutional and that they had a right to take over the states because they always were over the states. They also claim in various documents, the federal government claims that it was created before the United States of America. But this isn't exactly true because the United States was and always has been a force of protection over either the colonies or the nations or the independent states. So here we're looking at the congressional record. We're going to 105 on the PDF, but it is page 15641, June 13th, 1967, congressional record of the House. And there's a person speaking here who says, it looks like Mr. Rarick, whereas the Reconstruction Acts of Congress unlawfully, because they were unconstitutional. You can't use a constitutional office for an unconstitutional act. That's treason. Unlawfully overthrew their, meaning the states, existing governments or the people's existing governments, because the people of the land created the state. And then the states created the United States of America. And in the United States of America and Congress assembled, they created the United States and gave it power over federal lands only for defense purposes, for mutual protection. So the federal government went into the state capitals and removed their lawfully constituted legislatures by military force and replaced them with rump legislators, which carried out military orders and pretended to ratify the 14th Amendment. And then Congress adopted a resolution on July 28, 1868, unlawfully declaring that 3/4 of the states had ratified the 14th Amendment and directed the Secretary of State to so proclaim. So this opens up a big can of worms for a couple of things. And one is that everything that happened after the Civil War and during the Civil War basically is unconstitutional and void and has no power or authority. So when the states claim that they can ratify the Constitution by getting together, 3/4 of them getting together and altering the Constitution through amendments, it is doing so illegally because they're not states, they're not acting as states created by the people, they're acting as states created by the federal government. Those states are unlawful because they're not states created by the people of the state. They're states created by the federal government, or the states created by the people overtaken by the federal government by military force or military orders, as it says here. And in other places it says by military force. So when people say that they want to do a convention of states, what state are they convening as? If you're convening as state of Virginia, state of Tennessee, state of Oklahoma, state of Texas, you're convening as the federally created unlawful state. And so you're acting outside the Constitution. If you're convening as the original state or the people of the state who appoints deputies to go and ratify the Constitution, then you're acting as your lawful state. There is no real constitutional state because the Constitution didn't create states. The states created a union to protect themselves. So this is just another thing that I wanted to point out on how the states currently although the federal government acts as if they were lawful states, they're not lawful states, they're unlawful states. And so we have to be careful when we want to organize ourselves and try to amend the Constitution through a process called Convention of States. We have to be careful as to what we are convening as the state of whatever, which is the federal state, or the original, such as Republic of Texas, Commonwealth of Virginia, the people of Virginia, so on and so forth. Someone had asked me about the Convention of States and what I thought about it, and so I thought I would mention it here in this video. So again, this is a congressional record on the House, from the House, June 13th, 1967, page 15641. There's some other really interesting stuff said in here. But the Constitution, since the Civil War, has been enacted or has been outside of what the Constitution actually is. So the Constitution, according to Eisenhower, and the words in the Constitution itself, are supposed to protect the United States of America, which it says right in the preamble, the United States. And then you take all those words and you replace them with works for the United States of America. And we need to be aware that everything done since at least the Civil War has been outside the Constitution. All their acts, all their laws, all their contracts have been outside the Constitution. They have no constitutional authority. Even the people sitting in Congress right now, in my opinion, are unconstitutionally sitting in those offices. They're not qualified because they don't have a commission as commissioned officers being those who are on the federal lands in the states as military officers working for 7, 9, or 14 years. Then after that period of time, qualifying for certain seats at the seat of government for the protection or the military of the United States of America. It's not the first time a country has had a military type government or a constitution for a military. Germany had one, I don't remember the year, but also the civil servants took over that government, just like the civil servants have taken over the federal government, and subsequently the banks have taken over the civil servants. So those people sitting up there in Washington, in my opinion, none of them qualify because they haven't had their 7, 9, or 14 years as members of the military, being capital C, citizens of the United States, because the United States is the military or Department of Defense and all of its departments that work for the United States of America. And this is why we see that in the preamble it says the United States works for the United States of America, and the president has two offices, one being the executive of the United States of America and the commander-in-chief of the United States, and that Congress makes laws for the United States. And we see that the justices at the Supreme Court are not required to be citizens of the United States. Okay, so 1967 Congressional Report. I will try to upload it to archive.org. If I can't, I apologize, but you can just look this up and find it probably online somewhere. Of course, they're starting to delete searches off the internet. I encourage you to look at, who's this guy? Jimmy, who does Bright Insights on YouTube. He just put out a video on how they're deleting stuff off the internet through Google and Bing. When you search something, they're just deleting it off. So if you haven't seen that pop up on your YouTube page, go check him out, Bright Insights. Okay, so there you have it. More to come. You guys like, share, subscribe, talk about this to your friends, print this page out. You can highlight it, leave it in places, and I'll see you in the next video.